Okay, we are back. Unfortunately, the lichen does not glow in the dark under a black light during the daytime. Alright, I have to open my drink. It might explode. So I'll have to get back at night. So I did not get a video because there's nothing to show. Also, apparently the tree it is on is... I didn't pay attention the first time I was looking at it. Obviously the tree didn't have leaves the first time I noticed it, because now the leaves are mostly hiding it. Okay. My soda did not explode. Woohoo for me. Also, I have taken off my bra because that can literally make my ribs dislocate. For anybody else who's hypermobile out there, sucks for all of us. For anybody who's not, if you didn't know that, yeah, your ribs can dislocate if you've got hypermobility. Just from, here's an incomplete list while I open the book again on my phone. Wearing a bra, even though it's the properly sized bra, reaching for literally anything, holding a taco. Oh no, wait, no, that dislocated my fingers. Picking up a book, not even a particularly heavy book, just picking up a fucking book. Walking with your arm held out to hold your phone, and so many other things. Excuse me. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, if wearing a bra is painful to you and makes you feel like you can't breathe, you might have dislocated a fucking rib. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because, hypermobility means all of your joints and all of the connections between all of the things are loose, including the things that hold your ribs in place. So yeah, if you're lucky, you have the version of hypermobility that can be diagnosed with a blood test. But if you're unlucky, like me and a lot of other people, you've got the one that can't be diagnosed with a blood test. It's diagnosed by, well, I haven't been officially diagnosed because we haven't been able to find anybody that knows what the fuck it is, besides that the versions that can be diagnosed with blood tests, and they don't just believe me when I say, yeah, I dislocate my ribs. I've been dislocating my toes since I was a kid. I thought it was normal, so I didn't tell anybody. Yeah, just basic stuff. Tell your kids to always tell you if something hurts. Because if you don't tell them to tell you this, they will just assume that being in constant pain is normal. You gotta make sure your kids know to tell you, if anything hurts, tell me, and we will figure out what is causing it together. Because sometimes kids are just born disabled and think being in pain is normal. So yeah, be on the lookout for that if you've got kids or you know anybody that does have kids. Anyways, we will continue. Also, I hope to God nobody following me or watching any of my videos does this, but don't ever fucking stick soap in your kid's mouth to punish them, because I just washed my hands, and then I made the mistake of wiping my lower face, but I guess I still had soap suds on my hand, so I got the fucking soap taste in my mouth, and got reminded again that that was how my dad used to punish me as a kid, and I don't know what the fuck I did wrong to deserve that. Supposedly, quote-unquote, deserve that. Which tells you the fucking problem right there. I don't know what I did to, quote-unquote, deserve having a bar of soap shoved in my mouth. All I remember is that I had a bar of soap shoved in my mouth multiple times, and the taste of it. You know, the fucking Christmas movie, the kid's like, oh, I've gone blind because you did that, and blah blah blah, you should feel bad about it, and stuff like that. I'm getting a drink to try and get rid of the soap taste, but yeah, don't fucking do that. I literally can't stand the world's cheapest soaps because they usually smell like the one that was shoved in my mouth. It's terrible. Don't fucking do that to your children, and don't hit your kids either. And yes, that includes spanking. Kids aren't going to remember what they've done wrong to, quote-unquote, deserve it. They're just going to remember that you have decided to fucking beat them. Here's a good rule of thumb. If your kid is too young to understand why what they did was wrong, if you explain it to them, then then spanking them is just going to teach them that you enjoy hitting them for no reason. If your kid is old enough to understand what they've done wrong, if you explain it to them, then simply explain it to them. Kids don't enjoy breaking rules on purpose as a rule. They don't fucking know how the world works yet. It's your goddamn job to teach them. Anyways, we can go back to reading this now. We're on page 92. That was fast. The non-chapter that doesn't have a number or anything is just called Blood. I really goddamn hope we're going to be unlearning the anti-black colorism from the first story, but also, like, that was cats are, I don't know if you can hear them, but they're scampering around, chasing each other, tackling each other, doing butt wiggles to leap on each other. The problem is that even if we figure this out in the sequel, the second novella, quote unquote novella, it's too goddamn late because the damage has already been done, because that shit was just stated as word of God fact in the first story. And people who got pissed off and aren't going to read the sequel aren't going to see what I hope is the fucking final goddamn condemnation of that first anti-black colorism, saying that it's shameful for Binti to have dark-skinned desert people in her ancestry, as it was phrased. You can't just say that kind of just blatantly bigoted shit in one book without any kind of condemnation or double thinking. What am I thinking of? Like, second guessing or anything like that, without any hint that this is actually a bad thing, and then say, well, I resolved that in the second book. But people who are not as stubborn as I am, and the reason I'm live reading this, so far it's not as bad as the first one. The reason I'm live reading this is because when you look up Nadia Corafor on YouTube and stuff, there's nothing but praise so far that I've seen. Even though when you look at the actual reviews, a lot of people are talking about the bigotry and also the bad writing, but mainly the bigotry. And that's not showing up anywhere in video form, so I'm doing it now. That's why I recorded the other video I made, just talking about all of the bigotry in Noor. And also the fact that that was just definitely a fucking scam because it wasn't edited in any way. There's so many goddamn continuity errors. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, like, I really goddamn hope that right now Binti will be reconnecting with her desert people heritage, but, like, we haven't even been told yet what they call themselves. Desert people, as a proper noun, just definitely seems like it's an insult against them, especially because we stated as, not we, Nadia Corafor stated as fact in the first book, Binti, that being related to them is shameful. I think the exact quote was, Binti wasn't proud to admit that she had dark desert people in her, something like that. Like, I hope we're dealing with that now and saying that that's not shameful and she should in fact be proud of that. But it's too late, because this isn't all one story. This is two completely separate things. What year did I say this came out? I think this came out 2 years later, and it's only a novella. It's not even like it's a full-length novel. And again, like I said, it's not like we planted seeds of doubt in the first story that was not a statement we were actually supposed to think is true. Even if it gets resolved now, that's not going to fix the fucking problem for all of the people, the dark-skinned people and desert people, whoever that is supposed to be referring to as an insult. All of the people who read the first book already got told that the idea of being related to them is shameful and that their dark skin is gross. You can't fix the damage that you already did in that completely separate book by trying to backtrack now, because that's what this reads as. Even if this goes as well as it possibly could, why did you fucking put that line in the first story without any hint that it was bigotry instead of something we're just supposed to think is true? This is also the problem, as I keep fucking saying, with the Murderbot Diaries with Martha Wells. System collapse was too fucking late. Anything that, even if the next and last Murderbot book as I said, May 16th, 2026 earlier, even if the last book in the Murderbot Diaries tells us that there's a slave rebellion finally happening, it's too goddamn late. Because literally, 90% of people who read the first book are not going to be reading the last. Because Martha Wells has spent too fucking long demonizing slaves without any goddamn hope in sight that we would stop doing that. And even if Binti Home says, yeah, it's not shameful, it's a source of pride to be related to these people with their dark skin, it's too late, because the damage was already done. You already did the fucking colorist anti-black racism in the first story, and the people who read that, who aren't reading this second series, literally just so other people have warning about the bigotry in it, which is what I am doing, they're not going to give you a second fucking chance because you didn't give them any hint that should be hoped for. That line didn't need to be in the first story because it had nothing to do with anything else in that story. Barely anything in that story had anything else to do with anything else in that story, but that line could have just been fucking erased entirely. It wasn't in there because it was going to be dealt with within there, so it just seems like bigotry for the sake of fucking bigotry. And even if this fixes it, quote unquote fixes it, it can't fix it. Because you've already driven off all of the fucking people who have to hear that exact shit all the time. So, let's continue. This is called, this non-chapter, which doesn't have a number or anything, but it's on page 93. It's called Blood. Hopefully referring to the shared blood and ancestry and family ties between Binti and these desert people, as the story is calling them. Also, before I forget, in Noor, Nadia Korafor's other book, she refers to people as the Berbers, which is not the term that they actually call themselves in the real life, because that literally comes from the word barbarian. Most of them prefer being called the Amazigh, and I just cannot get over the fact that she's calling them the Berbers in her story without any discussion about that term or how contested it is or how it's seen as offensive. And she also apparently, I don't know anything about electricity, so I'm taking electrician's word for this, but also it also struck me as odd, as even though I don't know anything about electricity, but she used the completely wrong unit of measurement for when describing an amount of electricity in like a power turbine or something like that, and no research is being done, including upon the oppressed minorities and the fucking ethnic minorities that she is writing about and is being called progressive for writing about, but then she's calling them the term that they don't fucking prefer, because it literally comes from the word barbarian. Berber, barbarian. It literally comes from that. Instead of just calling them the Amazigh, and I might be mispronouncing that. It's been a while since I heard it said out loud, but I just can't get over that, because again, a lot of people need to be reminded, Africa is an entire fucking continent. It's not a country. Being from one country in Africa does not make you an expert or the spokesperson for all of the countries, let alone all of the ethnic minorities on that entire continent. You still have the responsibility to do due diligence and be responsible in how you are choosing to portray people, especially these ethnic minorities. And so far, I don't see Nadia Okorafor doing that in any goddamn way. Especially, I've been avoiding bringing it up so far because I'm hoping we would see anything change, but so far in Binti alone, this way that the Himba people, Binti and her family, are being portrayed has fucking nothing to do with how the Himba people in the real world actually live. They, like, if I didn't know any better, I would think these are just people made up for this sci-fi story, because nothing about any of this, aside from the Ochis, which isn't even being fucking described properly, because in the real world it's not just made of the red ochre and flower oil. One of the main ingredients is butter fat, milk fat from the milk of usually goats, sometimes cows, stuff like that. Like, but that's completely missing from these novellas series, and we're not given any in-universe explanation for why that is. And Nadia Okorafor went out of her way to assure us over and over again that it smells like jasmine. It smells like beautiful flowers. But in the real world, they usually don't add perfumes because, again, the entire reason they don't bathe with water, the entire reason they use this, is because they're in a desert. Water is a scarce fucking resource. You can't use it for these things. Perfume is also a scarce fucking resource. I don't this just seems like cultural appropriation and sanitization to make it more marketable and palatable, because, oh yeah, of course that seems really cool because it smells like flowers. Okay, but what if she was from, the real world Himba people, where they usually don't scent it with jasmine, of all things, and flowers? What then? Are you saying that they're gross for it because they can't afford perfume? Like, this is not responsible, especially because, like, this is probably most people's even first idea that the Himba people exist in any goddamn way. Let me get another drink. Okay. I think we covered all the bases there, so we can continue now. I just wanted to say that before I forgot again. The desert people surrounded the route the way groups of we're comparing them to animals instantaneously. I don't like that. The desert people surrounded the route the way groups of lake crabs surround their egg-filled holes when the eggs are ready to hatch. There were about... I don't like that. Why would you say that? Especially because lake crabs have never come up. This isn't even like like Binti's favorite animal or something, so that this comparison could in any way be, like, admirable. Anything? You could compare somebody to an animal by saying, like, I don't know, their singing was as beautiful as the songs of XYZ's favorite bird, something like that. I don't know. I just don't like this. The desert people surrounded the route the way groups of lake crabs surround their egg-filled holes when the eggs are ready to hatch. There were about 7 of them. For a second I forgot this was in first-person perspective. There were about 7 of them that I could see, probably more on the other side of the house. Some were men, some were women, and all had skin that was, quote, old African dark, like my father's and mine. Okay, so it's on her father's side. So does that mean your mother is shaming you, or your father is shaming you because he's ashamed of himself? And again, begging the question, who is shaming them? Who started the fucking cycle of shame? They wore the traditional goat pelt wraps around their waists, blue waist beads, and blue tops. Around their wrists they wore bracelets made from shards and chunks of pink salt found in dried lakes deep in the desert. None of them wore shoes. Straight-backed, faces stern, they stood silent, waiting. And though it was very late in the night, so it's still nighttime. I'm just so goddamn baffled by the timeline of this. and though it was very late in the night, a few neighbors had come out to see what was going on. You were shrieking. Shrieking. Shrieking is not a quiet thing. Are you telling me you were shrieking? And not only did nobody in your house wake up and come to check on you to make sure you weren't being eaten by, aliens or anything like that, we're supposed to pretend none of the neighbors heard and grew concerned. A few neighbors had come out to see what was going on. Of course. By sunup, the village's bush radio would carry the word to all of Osemba that desert people had come to the route. Kush communities and Kokura might even hear about it. I felt Aqua's presence not far behind me as it came around the house. I turned and nodded at it. Why are you nodding at it? That's just... People who write books don't really seem to, nodding? It's not really a thing you do all that often. What are you communicating by nodding to Aqua here? You haven't said a single word. My father was speaking with a tall old woman. Behind her stood 2 camels with packs on their backs. I watched for a moment as the woman's hands worked wildly while she spoke. I will say, hopefully we're not going there, but we've already done racism against these people. But if you read really old shit, like Edgar Rice Burroughs, author of Tarzan shit, there's a lot of ideas that black people always move their hands when they talk because, paraphrasing, their minds are too stupid for their words to work without using their hands to demonstrate and stuff. So it's not as common a stereotype these days. I hope not. Not that I've noticed in more recent-ish fiction. Not that I read many new things, but because, public domain shit is free. Most new stuff is not. Just keep an eye out for that. Okay. Sometimes she'd stop speaking entirely, yet her hands would keep going, moving in circles. Yeah. We're just doing that. Jabbing, zigzagging, sometimes harshly, other times gently. This was the way of the desert people, one of the reasons the Himba viewed them as... This was the way of the desert people, one of the reasons the Himba viewed them as primitive and mentally unstable. They had no control of their hands. The elders said it was some sort of neurological condition. Alright, best fucking case scenario, Binti is going to go off with these people for her pilgrimage. I swear to God, I fucking hope so. And learns not to say this shit. Let me get a drink. Needless to say, it appears that Nadia Corfor is aware of the exact anti-black stereotype that I was just talking about, and she's doing it on purpose. So, let's hope we're not going to demonize these people, but again, it's too fucking late for everybody who read the first one. You can't just spout bigotry as though it's completely true and then say, oh, but don't worry, the second book exists. Not yet, 2 years in the future. It's too late. When the old woman saw me, she smiled and then told my father, we'll bring her back by tomorrow night. My mouth fell open and I looked at my father, who did not look at me. How will I know? My father asked. She looked down her nose at him. Such a proud son you are. My father finally looked at me. Feel free to keep track of how many times I'm mixing up the syllables in 2 words while reading this. It seems to be happening a lot. My father finally looked at me. My mother grabbed my hand. Not going anywhere, she muttered. I was shocked by it so much that I could only stare at her. We just got her back, my mother told my father. She just said she'll come back by tomorrow night. She's only going for a day. You people are so brilliant, but your world is too small, the old woman who was my father's mother, my grandmother, said. One of you finally somehow grows beyond your cultural cage and you try to chop her stem. Fascinating. She looked at my father. Don't you remember what happened with your father? She straightened up. Your daughter, my granddaughter, has seen the night masquerade. So they're the ones who put it up. Alright, that's at least more interesting than her family fucking with her. My sister Para, who was standing beside me now, gasped and looked at me. You did? She whispered. I nodded at her, still unable to speak. She grabbed my other hand. Is that why you... No, she hasn't, my mother snapped. The old woman chuckled, and her hands twitched and began to move again, zigzagging, punching, waving. The astrolabe around her neck bumped against... We still don't know what astrolabes are, so now you can wear it as a necklace? Bumped against her chest, not once touched by the woman. Why do you think we came out here? There are rituals to be performed. Even from where I stood, I could see that her astrolabe was one that had been made by my father. The unique, slightly oval shape, the rose-tinted sandstone, this was an astrolabe he had made some time ago. My mother must have noticed this too, because she turned and gave him a dirty look. He sells them! It doesn't necessarily have to be a gift, come on! I mean, I guess we know where the fucking anti-black colorism is coming from. Oh my god, my fingers are dislocating. Hold on. Ow. Fuck. Ow. I'm just jinxing myself today. Ow, hand. You don't need to do that. That's what I get for holding my phone. Okay, ow. Fuck you, Pinky. Ow. Okay, so I have to fucking do this now. I have to make it so my phone screen won't just keep turning off so I can sit the phone down and not hold it anymore. Ow. Ow. Again, hypermobility. What have I done this time? In Gaius Baltar voice, what have you done to deserve this punishment? Holding my phone to read a book, an ebook. That's what I've done and makes my pinky want to dislocate. To be fair, my phone is slightly heavy. I have it in a case to protect it. And the one time I took it out of the case to clean the case, I dropped the phone and cracked the screen. Anyways, let's... Can I put... Now I gotta find something to sit the phone on. I guess that'll work. Oh, I don't even have the... Hold on. I'm trying to figure out which... Okay. Scrolled by accident. Let me turn the brightness up. Shut up. My phone's like, hey, you turned off location. Turn that back on. No, fuck you. Anyways, where was I? Okay, there we go. The old woman. Okay, we got there. Oh yeah, the astrolabe. My mother must have noticed this too, because she turned and gave him a dirty look. The other desert peoples... I wonder if I can crochet while I'm doing this now that I'm not holding my phone. Let's find out. The other desert people standing close by all laughed, some of them making the strange hand motions. I looked back at Akwu and frowned. Several of my relatives had now gathered. Nope, I can't crochet because I gotta look at it. Okay, that was a kid outside. I was trying to figure out if I was hearing a cat. Several of my relatives had now gathered, none of whom wanted to stand near Akwu. It stood behind them all, but beside it stood one of the desert people, a bushy-haired boy of about my age. I'm listening. Hold on. Okay, now the cats are reacting, so let me look outside quick. Okay, somebody's actually screaming outside, so I'm going to make sure they're okay. I'm just gonna end this in case I'm not back for a while.